I started doing this. I was all the chambers
she was put over to Jerome.
Yeah, I've got 20 projects here I could be working on, but it's not projects.
So yours is further down, it's not cheaper, but it's still, this goes to like, I don't know, maybe, or, okay. I've been telling you.
She did volleyball, she's not gonna do basketball. She tried it last year, but you know, it's okay, but it's not really my favorite. She's just gonna keep cheering.
Yeah, Joyce, Dorothy's sister.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like a lot of these things I know about. So it's like this stuff.
I think she likes soccer.
She might start going. She sounds like soccer.
Last year.
I don't think I got all this right now. Conservative in there.
She likes
Yeah, they have plenty of oh. Yeah, we can go together. Maybe. Well, maybe we can go Thursday or Friday. Whatever. Okay, yeah, we can do it. These are Maddie's. Do you want some? And she gets some, so it's not so hard. It's, I'm gonna look at it. Your car. I've seen it on the back and then on the
that's a lot more hands-on. Because you can't. Right, so you guys-
It's not on this truck, on the back. Yeah.
We went to Christmas windows or.
Brenda? This is Brenda. We're gonna go. We're gonna go on businesses later this week and drop days.
There.
Because there's so many here. And that's why it was earlier.
And then Lee is, she does, she's not, she's got she tries so hard. Slope intersect something on Mississippi Road. Yeah, it's fucking down. I can't do it now.
Oh, she's in.
You know Brenda? My friend Brenda.
Hey, get out of here.
No.
She's in.
Got 2 kids. I wear a hat so you can't see my red hair, right? 2 kids in college. I just got 2 left at home. This week I'm in college. Parsons fan. Carson's doing his first year at Colorado. Cut short, he broke his hand and had surgery twice. Second surgery. His Michigan quarterback is so nice. Star quarterback, so what's his 2 names? So he's redshirting this year because he just got from Michigan.
More than a few and less than many.
That's right.
That's all right.
So we're going to have a prayer and pledge, and we'll get going. So if you want to sit down and
Yeah.
MC it a little bit.
All right. Knock yourself out.
Okay. Well, good evening, folks. If we're all ready to start, it is just a little bit after 7 o'clock. Do you think I need to speak right into it? Okay. I will speak into it because I've been instructed to do so. My name is McCord Larson. I am the Legislative District 27 Chairman. I'm also the elected prosecuting attorney for Cassia County. And tonight, this is obviously a vote no on Proposition 1 informational meeting. We've asked Mr. Grant Lopes he is the Twin Falls County prosecutor, and we'll talk a little bit more about him in just a minute. But we are going to start off with a prayer by Scott Horsley, who is the vice chair for LD 27. And then Kylie Searle will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. So, Mr. Searle, or Mr. Scott Horsley, sorry.
Join me in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful unto Thee for the blessings which Thou bestows upon us and upon this area. Grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy in this great nation. We thank Thee for those who serve so willingly in our local and state and national positions. As we meet this night, we pray for those who participate and the discussion might be helpful to those in attendance. We thank Thee again for all with which we're blessed. Do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to personally thank everybody for coming out. Just for your information, this is also being live streamed and will be available for review later. It's on YouTube, and the link will be preserved. And so if you want to use any of this and edit for social media purposes and to post to your Instagram, to your TikTok, to whatever you want to do, that's totally fine. We do ask that if you're going to edit, that it's not creative editing, that it's accurate editing. I would prefer that it doesn't become. I guess if it catches on like the McDonald's memes with President Trump today, those are some fierce memes, and I support a lot of those. Just a couple comments before we begin. The reason we're doing this meeting is because I reached out to Representative Pickett to say, hey, what can the legislative district do to help you? And he said we need to have more information on Proposition 21 or Proposition 1. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been in a lot of court today and not a lot of food, and so I'm a little bit all over the place. So I apologize. But he said this is something that the public needs more education on, and I concur, and that's why we're here. And this is an opportunity for us to learn some good bullet points and some things to take home, some things to take to your neighbors, to your friends. Ladies and gentlemen, in this election, if you're going to the poll by yourself, that is a travesty. There should be 10 people with you. Take your friends, take your family. Vote like your life depends on it. Yeah, we're Idaho and national politics, whatever. But in our local races, in our statewide issues, if we want to support these things, if we want to make sure that we make a difference, don't just go to the polls by yourself. Take 10 people. So we're going to have a presentation now by Grant Lobes. He is a fellow prosecuting attorney and a fine one from Twin Falls County. He's been the elected prosecuting attorney since 1997. He has handled some interesting cases. He shares a case in common with me where he helped a victim, and now I'm prosecuting that same victim. It's kind of a wild set of facts. We're just happy to have him here. He is a lifelong Republican, very, very conservative. And inasmuch as the Republican Party for the state of Idaho and LD 27 has taken a stance on vote no for Prop 1, he's here to present that position. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask him. Keep them germane. Keep them to what he's presenting, please. And we just appreciate your time. And thank you, Grant. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. If I'm away from the mic, can you hear me? It's kind of a small group of people. And of course, everybody's sat over here. So when I'm looking this way, I won't see you, but you get a good view of the back of my head. Well, I'm here to talk to you about Proposition 1. I'm opposed to Proposition 1, and I'm not going to present a balanced thing. I'm going to tell you up front I'm opposed to it, and I'm going to tell you some of the reasons why. I'm going to explain as well what it is. And if anybody out there catches me saying something that's not accurate about what it is, please raise your hand. You can interrupt me while I'm speaking as long as you don't throw anything hard at me, and as long as you raise your hand so I can spot you. This is, for Idaho anyway, this year, the biggest thing on the ballot. Obviously, we all want to vote in the presidential race. Of course, that's huge, but I don't think there's a whole lot of doubt about how the presidential race is going to go in Idaho. I think that one of the candidates is very likely to get our 4 electoral votes, and I don't think it matters in that regard whether you miss voting. But this issue is on the razor's edge. This is going to be, I'm sure, very close. And if I had to guess, despite some polling numbers that I'll show you at the end of this, I would say that the yes people are probably winning, in part because of some other numbers I'm going to show you about how much money they have. In any case, how many of you here tonight are from Cassia County? Okay, how many are from Mini-Cassia County? And how many are from some other county? Okay, so mostly Cassia, several Mini-Cassias, and a couple, stray dogs that just wandered in. How many are against Proposition 1? How many are for it? How many don't have a clue? Okay, so only one person might throw stuff at me. Keep an eye on him, will you? If he has anything hard, warn me. Soft stuff, that happens all the time. Okay, so Proposition 1 is on the ballot because you remember people wandered around getting you to sign things. And they asked you to sign something for what? What did they want you to sign for? Open primaries, right? Did anybody ask you to sign something for ranked choice voting?
Yes.
Who said that? You did? They asked you to sign for ranked choice voting, okay? So you got one of the very energetic people who said more than one thing when they passed out the petition. But so Proposition 1 is for ranked choice voting and for open primaries. It's two things. And while they're closely related, they're very different. They're very different in what they do, and they're very different in the purpose behind them. This is the front page of the Proposition 1 document. This is the rest of it here. So I'm not going to read this to you, nor am I going to put a slide on for every one of these pages. But it's 18 pages, many of which, to be fair, are listing the current law and then where it's changed. But in order to do something as gigantic and significant and revolutionary as this, you need a lot of ink, and there is a lot of ink. But the main things are primary elections, the quote open primary, which is what they asked you to sign when you signed a petition, also known as a jungle primary. That's not a name I came up with just to be mean about it. That's what this type of primary is, familiarly known as. And then with regard to general elections, the ranked choice voting. So we're going to talk about the open primary, jungle primary part first. So how many, well, a lot of you, I think, have been voting since before 2011, right? Raise your hand if you voted before 2011. Okay, and some of you not. Who has not? Who has voted since 2011? Man, just one guy. The youngest guy in the room, probably. Either that or he was a long-time non-voter. But so before 2011, Idaho had what we called an open primary. That's what it was called when the Republicans changed from the open primary to the closed primary. They called it the open primary. We went through a number of very contentious discussions as Republicans about whether we would remain in the open primary system or close the primary. Finally, Republicans decided to close the primary. And so you think, well, who are the Republicans to close their primary? Who thinks that? Give me a stooge. Somebody be a stooge. McCord thinks, why, the Republicans, what business is it theirs to close the primary? Well, it's their business to close the primary because the primary is the method that the Republicans used and that the Democrats used and that the other parties in Idaho used to select their nominee. The point of the primary, the point of a convention, the point of a caucus is to select the nominee of your party to go into the general election to go against the nominee of other parties. That's what the primary system has always been in Idaho. But before 2011, you could walk in and go to vote, and the clerk would ask you, hey, Grant, good to see you. What ballot do you want? And I'd say, I'll go with the Republican ballot today. And my Democrat friend behind me, he would come in and he would say, I'll go with the Republican ballot too. Nothing on the Democrat ballot in Twin Falls County this year, so I'll vote for the least bad Republican. The Republicans didn't like that eventually, and they changed it to keep the Democrats mainly from being in, from voting in the primary to select the Republican candidate. So the main goal of Proposition 1 is to eliminate party primaries. That's the point of it. That's why it's here. That's the point of it. It's not to open the primary to go back to what we had before. It's to eliminate party influence in primaries, period, which will make your meetings a little less meaningful going into the future if you're on the Legislative District 26 Committee or on the Cassia County Republican Central Committee or whatever, because you're not going to be involved in selecting the nominees of your party because your party won't really have a nominee. And that's the point of this. The chief goal is to end closed primaries. And the reason is, and we'll talk about this a little more, the statement that's made in so much of the advertising in favor of Proposition 1, that there are 270,000 independent voters who are blocked from voting. You probably know that's not true. We'll talk about why it's obviously not true in a minute. So the people who are running it say that their main reason is to end closed primary elections. And if you look at this, you talk, this is the part where we talk about what the ballot is supposed to do, what the ballot initiative is supposed to do. It will allow anybody to run in the primary, and they can list any affiliation they want on the ballot. So I want to run against McCord probably, because Twin Falls is too big and it's just too much for me, and I want a break. I want to just relax the way McCord does. So I want to move to Cassia County, and I want to run against him. And they say, well, you know, McCord's gonna, you know, he's a pretty popular Republican. What are you? And I might say, I don't know. I mean, the Green Party's big here, right? I might say I'm the Green Party guy. And they would say, aren't you a Republican? Haven't you been a Republican forever? Doesn't matter. I can say I am whatever I want. It doesn't matter what I say, because I need not be associated with the party that I claim to be. So it's, okay, well, that's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about what this closed primary or open primary system is in reality. So this is the ballot from June 11th of 2022 from the Alaska special election. And it was a big deal because Sarah Palin was running, and obviously she had a lot more name recognition across the country than most people who run for the single Congress seat in Alaska. But Sarah Palin was running, and so it was a big deal. And Alaska passed an open primary rule, just like ours, really. And we'll talk about how it works. But they passed something that allows anybody who wants to walk in and run, and they can say they are whatever they want. So I don't know, whoever your biggest Democrat is in this town, you know, it's probably Charlie Hustle. He's your biggest Democrat. He walks in and he says, I don't think I can win as a Democrat. There aren't enough Democrat votes in Cassia County, so I'm going to claim to be a Republican. Perfectly fine. It doesn't matter what he says he is, because see this really tiny fine print way up there? That's actually going to be printed on the ballot. That is on the Idaho ballot if this passes, and it was exactly the same language that's on the Alaska ballot. And that says, please note, a candidate's designated affiliation does not imply that the candidate is nominated or endorsed by the political party or group, or that party or group approves or associates with that candidate, but only that that candidate is registered as affiliated with the political party or political group, which in Idaho, you know, you can do when you walk up to vote. You can change your affiliation just as fast as, you know, getting out your driver's license. So this fine print kind of warning that a lot of these people aren't who they say they are is actually printed on the ballot. And that same language will be on the ballot in Idaho if this passes. So here's an example of, this is the same primary. We're talking about the Alaska one. So 48 candidates. We have no idea who they actually were, but 16 of them Republicans, 12 nonpartisan, 10 undeclared, whatever that means, 6 Democrats, 1 independent, 1 libertarian, an Alaska independent, and of course, Santa Claus. You would expect Santa would run in Alaska, and he in fact did. So this is the result of that election. So this is why this 48 candidate thing is such a mess, because it's a colossal waste of time, because nothing against Santa Claus, but my guess is he's kind of a clown. But nevertheless, he got 4.72%, which puts him, I think, fifth in this whole thing. So what we had in this election is Sarah Palin got 27%. She's obviously a Republican, whether you like her or not. Nick Begich is a Republican. He got 19.12%. McCord, can you add that up for me? That's too slow. Yeah. Anyway, it's a bunch. The third place person was this guy here, who's a non-party guy, but did a lot of work, campaigned, and I guess was well known up there. So he comes in third. Fourth is this lady here, Mary Patolta. Does anybody know what her title is now? Congressman. Because even though she was obviously by far and away an unpopular choice by the electorate with only 10% of the vote, she won that race, and then she went on to the ranked choice voting. She got to the ranked choice voting by being in the top 4 of the primary. So once she gets out of the primary, she goes to this, and then you see here, there's Sarah Palin, there's Mary, there's Nick, and then this guy was put on here. He was the 5th place guy, but the 3rd place guy dropped out, so everybody else moved up. So that guy got even fewer votes in the primary than Mary Patolta did. Patolta. So anyway, that's what the ranked choice voting looks like. And so you probably know what that's all about, but when you get to this ballot in Idaho, as in Alaska, you're asked, in fact, I didn't highlight it, but this tiny one font print up here are the instructions on how to vote. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 instructions to teach you how to use this ballot once you get into the voting place. And admittedly, I mean, a person of average intelligence who's paying attention can figure it out. It's not so complex that you need to be a genius to do this, but it is a little bit different than what we're used to. I mean, I've never seen 8 micro font instructions on how to fill out my ballot before. But in any case, what this really tells you is that you don't just go in here and say, well, here's the US representative race. I like Sarah Palin, boom, check the mark next to her. No, you don't do that. And you can, but if you do that, you're walking on thin ice, because what you're supposed to do is rank them 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th choice. Who's my first choice? You know, maybe it's Sarah Palin. My second choice might be Nick Begich because he's a Republican. My third choice might be the Libertarian. My fourth choice is going to be Mary because she's a Democrat and I'm not a Democrat and I don't want to be represented by a Democrat. That's why I'm a Republican and I vote almost always against Democrats because that's what parties are designed to do. Party primaries and party affiliations are designed to elect people who are close to your viewpoint on things. Maybe not on everything, but on many things. You know, I went to the Ronald Reagan movie the other night. Has anybody seen that? Gone to the Reagan movie? I came out of there excited and depressed both. I worked for Reagan in Washington in the Pentagon, and so a lot of the stuff that was happening in that movie, I was there for. I knew the people. It's like, oh, I know that guy, he's on TV. And then I come out of the movie and I think, oh my God, what's happened? Where are we now? Look at this. This is so bad. It was so great back then, but I digress. But the point is, Reagan is famous for saying that if a person is votes with me 80% of the time and against me 20% of the time, he's an 80% friend, not a 20% enemy. And that's the way party politics has worked most of my life. Most of the time, I don't agree with everybody I vote for on everything, but I generally side with one party and I associate with that party, which is why the Republicans closed the primary when they did, because the open primary had other people picking your candidate. And I gave McCord a hard time because, he had trouble telling me who the name that I needed to know. But you know, you got some Minidoka people in here, and that's fine. Some Minico Spartans. Is there any yay Spartans people? Yes. Okay, yay Spartans right here. So yay Spartans. But this is Cassia County. And this is where the Bobcats are from. I saw their nice auditorium. We're here. I saw, you know, welcome to Bobcat Field or whatever it is. And the way we ran the open primary before, the Spartans got to have a voice in whether Mac Jensen was the Bobcats quarterback. And that makes no sense at all. I mean, I don't care whether Mac Jensen has a good day or a bad day, or whether he throws 6 touchdowns or 6 interceptions. If I'm a Bobcat, the Spartans shouldn't be picking him. And that's the problem with the old open primary. But again, this goes way beyond that, because this eliminates both the Spartans primary and the Bobcats primary. So let's talk a little bit about how this actually works when you get into the polls. Well, that's how it works when you get into the polls. How does it work when we count the votes? I've got a nice board here. Much better than I had in Minidoka County, huh? See, that was the origin. That was early on. So we've got 4 candidates here, and let's see. I think this is probably Clay here. Clay can be the Republican. Scott the Democrat. Solid, right? Solid Democrat. Who wants to be the mystery candidate who nobody knows anything about? What's your name? Ann?
First name is Emma Jean.
Emma? Okay. Emma Jean? Okay, Emma Jean. We have no idea what you're about. No clue. I barely know your name. Barely know your name. And then this person here is running for one reason only. His neighbor's cow keeps getting in his onions. And damn it, he's had it with that. So he is running. This is a county commission race, just so you know. Okay, because that's, you know, it's county commission kind of thing. So that, of course, is McCord. That's the only thing McCord cares about in the world. That's the reason he's on the ballot. A lot like some of these people that were in the Alaska primary, some of whom got less than half of the votes of the people in this room in a statewide race. So they went on the ballot and they got like 9, 10, 11 votes. But we're going to do better than this here, because here's what happened. The first choice is what we're looking at. Who picked Clay as their first choice? Turns out 40 people did. We only have 100 people in this election. And 28 picked Scott. 20 picked Emma Jean. We don't know why they did, because we don't know anything about her. She is a complete cipher. But anyway, 20 picked her, and 12 sympathized with McCord's problem with his cow in the onions. Now, what do we do with that? We obviously say Clay's the winner, don't we? That makes sense. He's far and away the most popular, isn't he? Oh, no, you can't do that. That's the old way of thinking. We don't pick the most popular person. What we do is we say, this guy had no business being in the race at all. Who cares if the cow's getting in his onions? So what we do then is we take his second choices. Who did he pick for second choice? And they go into the second round, and then we tally them all up again. All these people are still voting for their first choice because their first choice is still in the race. So their second choice is irrelevant. McCord's second choice, though, gets allocated here. And it went like this. One person who voted for McCord decided to switch to Clay. One person who voted McCord decided to switch for the Democrat, Scott. And 10 people who voted for McCord went for Emma Jo. Why did they go for Emma Jo? Because they hate these two guys. Because they don't want to be Republicans or Democrats. They hate these people. Because Scott campaigned on, I don't know, Scott, so I don't get, you beat me up afterwards. What's the most likely Democrat position you would take? If I'll pick one for you, if you don't pick one for yourself.
Most likely.
Okay, he's anti-gun. He hates guns. He hates guns. He hates them. But Clay, on the other hand, he wants no restrictions on guns at all. He wants to be able to own a bazooka. He has a Sherman tank. He's angry that he can't have a fully operational Sherman tank. So that's why McCord's people said these two people, they're just crazy. So this is the way the second round went. What does that mean now? Does that mean that Clay wins because he won 2 rounds in a row? No, it means that Scott and his, gun confiscation candidacy is gone. So that means 29 people from Scott's group are going to have to go somewhere else. Now we're dealing with Scott's second choice, and we're still dealing with McCord's second choice. So Scott's second choice and McCord's second choice go this way. We got 48 here because some of these people just were uncomfortable voting for somebody they know nothing about, because guess what Emma Jean's position is on this gun thing? I'd prefer not to say today. It's an important issue, I know, but I'm studying it. So she has no position on that at all. So this vote, of course, is not happening. But what happened is these gun confiscation crazies that were on Scott's side could not think of voting for Clay and his, reckless arming his Sherman tank candidacy. So they went here 22-7, which means this guy is the winner. This girl is the winner. Emma Jean's the winner. And why? We don't know a thing about her. Why did she win? Was she the most popular?
So I guess I have a question.
Yep.
Because to me, this looks like you're almost selling it as a good way to do it if we're eliminating the extreme candidates that are driving a tank down the road. I don't know.
Sure, and I obviously made them both extreme, but they may just be, Leonard Beck, just a guy.
I know Leonard.
Whose position is he's taken positions on things. He's got a record. He's done some things, and he's made some enemies. But this is just for more humor that I did this, because really, I don't know any. There's some Democrats that have Scott's position. Not really any. Well, I guess there may be a couple people that have Clay's position, but yeah, this is obviously for exaggeration purposes, and really, this isn't going to happen in Cassia County. But in this scenario, Emma Jean does not win because she's the most popular. She doesn't win because she took a position on things and people liked her ideas. She wins because she's silent. She wins because she doesn't stand for anything. And in a world where all you have to do is be the least hated, standing for something is a big mistake. So this probably wouldn't happen in Cassia County. What is likely to happen in Cassia County is more like, let's see here. It's more like this. So you got, let's see, we don't need these people anymore. We're going to use some real people. And the cow guy is not running. And the question mark person's not running either. And neither is the Democrat. Well, maybe the Democrat is. I don't know. Probably not, though, because you have a jungle primary. What do you think the percentage of Republicans in Cassia County is? I've got this somewhere here. Okay, it's the registered Republicans, surprisingly, is only 76.2%. The registered Democrats are 6%. The registered unaffiliated are 16%, and then you got 1% other things. So what that means is, when you have your jungle primary, you're almost certain that the top 4 people are going to be Republicans. Maybe somebody will slip in there with, 60, something like that. But so this is the way we're going to do this. So this is, because he's not here, we can pick on him. This is Leonard Beck. He's running again for commissioner. How long has he been there? 2 terms. 2 terms? Well, he wants another term, even after ranked choice voting. So, what happened in the jungle primary is Leonard Beck got 69% of the vote. This is a primary vote here we're putting up. He got 69% in the jungle primary. And Thing 1 ran against him and got 23%. And Thing 2 got 7%. And Thing 3 here, he got 1 vote. He's the only person who voted for himself. He couldn't even get his wife to vote for him. So this is what happened in the jungle primary. That's the result of the primary. And you say, well, obviously, it would be ridiculous to have a general election and use all this ranked choice voting stuff when Beck got 69% in the primary. No, it doesn't matter. The same exact people run in the general election. So your primary did nothing whatsoever. It eliminated no one. You went to the polls for no reason at all because only 4 candidates ran, including this guy who only voted for himself. Same exact thing rerun in the general election. Yeah.
Okay, so on this first, second, third rank, how does it actually get tallied? Like,
The computer does it.
the computer does it?
The computer does it. The computer votes, the computer tallies how many first place votes each person gets, and that's the first round. Like we showed before.
Then does it go back in and tally in the next?
And then it eliminates, it kicks out the person with the least, like it did Cow Guy, kicked out Cow Guy, and then it retabulates. All the first votes of people who are still in the race just get voted again. All their first place people just get tallied once again. Their second place people are never looked at. And then on the second row, on the second one, remember we eliminated the Democrat here on the second one. And so then it takes his votes, throws the first out, counts the second votes. So it puts his second votes toward one of the 2 surviving candidates who both have still their first vote tally running with them. And they get added to, the first votes of each of these people get added to when people knock off. So remember I put like a +1 or +2 or +11 or whatever.
Computer does that.
Yeah, computer does all that. Ideally.
So if the computer's got a glitch in it, we don't know what would happen.
Well, that's why we're going to pay as much as we're going to pay for these computers, and you'll see how much that's going to cost in a minute. But yeah, so there aren't people sitting in the back room doing this on paper. I mean, maybe in Camas County there are, I don't know. But anyway, so you see this being the primary, what's going to happen when we go to the general election? Well, 69% are going to vote for Leonard, 23, 7, and 1, probably pretty much the same. And that means that we don't go down the road anymore because somebody already got a majority. So we don't count more than one round and over. Because if you get more than 50%, then you win at that round. You don't have to eliminate the 1 vote guy and do any of that.
So is it the same computer program that does the general election? Or does is the choice, ranking choice?
I'm sure it would be, yeah. It has to be a different program than we now use, but yes. So, anyway, so back to the Alaska primary for a second. We see here, this is an article from PolitiFact. Sarah Palin got 31% of the votes. This is in the general election with the ranked choice voting. Begich got 28%, but neither one of them got 50% in the first round. So once the Begich people went more for the Democrat than did for Palin, at least, many of them did. A lot of them went for Palin because she lost, I think, 48%. So she picked up 17% of the third place people, and when Begich was eliminated, and the Democrat picked up the rest. So she started out with 10% of the vote in the primary. She's now a congressman. So the 10% are the people that wanted her, and they settled for her in the end. And so this is what we got: ranked choice voting. These are the Alaska U.S. representative elections since 1972. Oh, there's an outlier there, isn't there? So for the first time in 40 years, 50 years, they elect a Democrat. And I don't dislike Democrats. Democrats are part of our process. I have friends who are Democrats. I have relatives who are Democrats. But I don't want them in Congress, because they're gonna follow Scott with his crazy gun confiscation scheme. And so I don't want them there. And this is about whether this is a good idea, but it's also about the Republican Party, if you're a Republican. If you're not a Republican and you're watching me, you're going to say, I hate everything that guy says. He's not a Democrat, and so I'm going to do whatever he says not to do. And so that's fine, but I'm speaking to you as a Republican. So this is, the question is, who wants this and why? And we do have somebody here who wants it. I won't put him on the spot, but if he wants to interrupt me, he can, because I'm going to start talking about some of the reasons why this has been put forward and some of the reasons why people support it. And there are other reasons. I'm not going to list all of them. But this is their main argument. This is their main flyer. If you've been watching any sort of TV or social media, you've seen this 100 times. We have blocked 275,000 independents from voting in our most important elections. And I admit that sounds bad. I don't want to block anybody from voting. So the problem is with this argument is it's obviously false. It's absolutely false. Because the only thing it can mean is that the independents are blocked from voting in the Republican primary, because that's the primary, that's the election that all these people say is the important election. So the important election is the Republican primary, and these people are blocked from voting in that. Is anybody in here a registered independent? Have you ever voted? Have you ever voted in a Republican primary?
Yes.
How can you do that? You're blocked.
I went in, I was Republican, and after the primary, I switched back to independent.
That certainly must have been a long and cumbersome process for you when you got to the voting booth. They must have made you give a blood sample or something horrible, right?
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake. That's hard to believe, because that's the whole reason for this thing. That's the whole reason for it, to keep guys like you from having to eat this piece of cake.
Well, the problem is, if you don't go and vote, you still have the right to vote either Democrat, Republican, or independent.
Exactly.
All you have to do is take the initiative to go in and do it.
See, now you should come up here and take the control. Because here's the thing, just like he said, who is blocked from this important primary? Who is blocked? Maybe, we'll see about that in a minute, but yes. So there's a total in Cassia County, oops, can I go back? Okay. There's a total in Cassia County of 10,374 voters registered. Of those, 76.2% are Republicans, 16.8% are unaffiliated. I'm not going to ask McCord because he's not very good at this on the spot, but 93% of Cassia County voters are eligible to vote in the Republican primary by doing this piece of cake. What was your name, sir?
Michael.
Michael. By following Michael and doing this piece of cake process. What you do is you walk up and the voting person says, "Hi, Grant, how you doing?" And I say, "I'm fine." And they say, "I see you're unaffiliated. Which ballot would you like?" And I say, "I'd like a Republican ballot today." And they say, "Here, if you just sign there, you need to affiliate with the Republican Party for today." And I say, "All right." I sign that, they give me a Republican ballot, I go vote, and I'm done.
It's actually easier than that. I'm a poll worker. All you do is select your ballot. You don't even have to.
Well, you guys got a very easy county here. In our county, they make you say. But in any case, you have to affiliate with the Republican Party in order to vote in the Republican primary. And so, under this scenario, only the Democrats and registered members of other parties are blocked from voting in the Republican primary. But that isn't really the end of it. But let's look at how many Idaho voters are blocked, because this is where we get this horrific number of 276,500 people are blocked from voting. It's a horrendous, horrible travesty. Well, no. 59 plus 26, 85.66% of all Idaho voters can vote for the Republican nominee in the Republican primary. If we had a primary this year for president, which we didn't because we had the caucus, but if we had a primary, all of those people could have walked in and voted for or against Donald Trump, even though they're not Republicans. 26.5% are not Republicans. So again, statewide, a tiny group of people, the Democrats and the other, who are members of other parties, could not vote in the Republican primary.
Grant, sorry, can you go back to the flyer that they had?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it says every taxpayer-funded election. So it's like almost like a double anti-truth, because the Democrats are voting in their own taxpayer-funded election, and those others are also can vote in their own primary, and those are all funded by the same taxpayers.
See, I'm going to have you and Michael team teach this, because when a smart thinker aheader gets going, see, they think ahead. But of course, right? The Democrats, all these people, every registered voter in Idaho, every one of these people gets to vote in the primary. The deal is, what is the Democrat primary for? What's the purpose? When I'm a Democrat and I go to the primary, why am I there? To pick my nominee. To pick the person who I want to represent my party in the general election. And sometimes there is nobody. That's true. I mean, I'm in the middle of nobody territory for Democrat nominees, although somebody has one. Bruce has one. You have one. People selected him in a primary, or he thought they might have to if he ran against somebody. I don't know if he was unopposed, but the point of the Democrat primary is, oh man, the point, I'm ahead of me. The point of the Democrat primary is to pick the Democrat nominee. And when the Democrat nominee is picked, what does he get to do? He runs just on an even plane with the Republican, right? If we have a debate for Idaho governor, who's on the stage? Just Brad Little? No, the Democrat's on the stage. Doesn't matter if a quarter of the number of people voted for that person in the primary. They get equal billing, they get the same podium, they get the same time. They're treated as equals, and the voters get to decide between one ideology and another in the general election. So, yeah.
I go in because I want vote, but I want to vote for the best person, Democrat or Republican, which irritates me when we have the closed primary, because I think Democrats and Republican people are equal on personalities or promise or whatever you want.
Yep.
I'm voting for the person who's best, I think is best qualified, whether it's Democrat or Republican, but I'm limited by having to pick affiliation until it comes to
The general election.
And
That-
that's the irritating thing to me.
That is true, and back to my analogy about the Spartans and the Bobcats, you want to be able to look at all Spartan and Bobcat football players and field the best quarterback that everyone has on the team. You don't care about Spartans and Bobcats. You want the best, most talented player. So we might pick a person. I understand there are some people from Oneida County maybe watching this. I don't know what their high school is, but maybe the Oneida County quarterback's got more talent than anybody in Minidoka or Cassia County. And so you want to be able to pick from all humans the person that would be best.
I want to pick from the person who's most qualified for that position in the government, which is going to represent, and
Right.
ideally can be equally at the same point in time.
And when do you get to do that under our current system?
I can't do that until
The general election.
general election, which eliminates people from the opposite, of the other party that I think,
It'll-
I know personally, just would be
Sure.
just as well prepared.
It eliminates,
And the
perhaps,
Spartans are winners, so I'll tell you that right now.
what's that?
Spartans are winners, so.
Well, I'm not saying they're not, but they shouldn't have any voice in who the Bobcat quarterback is. That's my only point. Mac should be able to start for the Bobcats regardless of what the Spartans think. And when you are in a voluntary association like the Republican Party, like the Democrat Party, like the Libertarian Party, you should be able, this is my philosophy, and this is what the US Constitution says, you should be able to choose who you affiliate with and choose who leads you, who leads your group, your club, your faction, your party into battle against the opposition. So the Republican current system is that you go to the polls and Republicans pick Republicans and Democrats pick Democrats, but it's not nearly that restrictive because you're an independent and you get to pick whichever. You can say, I really like this Democrat or I really like this Republican. You can pick whichever ballot you want right at the last minute. And
That's in
in the primary.
Prior to that point in time, I can't vote for a Democrat or Republican on.
You got to pick which one. That's true. You got to pick which one. And so, but the point is, Democrats have their own primary. Democrats can, however, vote in the Republican Party also, can't they? Who knows that the Democrats can vote in the Republican primary? Along with the independents and everybody else.
You just got to change your thing.
Just got to change, there's a rule that you got to change it earlier. You got to change it by the time the candidate selection process, or the candidate registration process is over in March. If I'm a Democrat and I say, man, there's nobody good to choose here, I want to vote for the best Republican or the weakest Republican or whatever I want to do. I change my party. I'm a Republican when I go in. I get a Republican ballot, or I'm unaffiliated when I go in, because if I change to unaffiliated, I don't ever have to say I'm a Republican. I say I'm unaffiliated, I go in, I get my ballot from the very easygoing poll workers in Cassia County who just give it to me because I say so, and I can vote however I want. So we can do what you want to do. We can pick whoever we want, even if you're a registered Democrat. So,
Before you change the slide, this might be done, but out of the 85.66 voters that are eligible, are the other people not citizens of the,
no.
or is this just?
The other people are Democrats or registered in another party. And they're Democrats who didn't change because on election day, a Democrat can't change. If I'm a registered Democrat, I can't change on election day.
So it's not people that are living here illegally?
No, they aren't registered voters. They're not even on this list.
Oh, they're voters.
Yeah, well, they're not registered and not legal voters in Idaho. And you got something on the ballot on that too, but I won't go into that. So the point is, Democrats and independents and libertarians and Green Party people all can vote in every election we have. They have choices to make as individual human beings about whether they want to be a Republican or a Democrat who pretends to be a Republican, or an unaffiliated person who likes the Republican candidates better this time. They have the choice. Nobody is banned from voting in Idaho. That would be obviously a horrible system. So, no wonder Jim Risch says this is a solution in search of a problem, because there's no problem. There's no problem here. So, if concern for the independents isn't the real reason that they want to change this, and really concern for the Democrats isn't either, because the Democrats get to vote as well. I saw a speech from a guy who's traveling around the state speaking in favor of this. He's a Republican precinct committeeman in Rexburg, I think. His name's Hiram Erickson. Seems like a decent guy, tall. He said in the speech that I saw him give to the Republican women in Twin Falls, he said the reason he's for this is because he has a neighbor who's a Democrat, and he just feels bad that his Democrat neighbor doesn't get to vote in the Republican primary. I mean, life's full of choices, right? I mean, that's no different really than me feeling bad that my favorite Mini-Cassia kid doesn't get to quarterback the Bobcats. It doesn't make any sense. And it obviously doesn't make any sense. So, what's the reason behind this? The reason behind this is that they not only want to pick who gets to quarterback your team, they don't even want you to have a quarterback, and they don't even want you to have a team. They want the team eliminated. The whole point behind this is to eliminate the Republican Party and its influence in elections. And the reason is because Democrats, many other people perhaps who aren't Democrats, unaffiliated people, and this gets back to the comment, somebody who said, we don't like those extreme people. Didn't like my example. Okay, my example's too extreme. And it is. So, but the reason behind this is that Democrats, some unaffiliated people, and some Republicans do not like who the Republicans have been picking lately in their primaries. They don't like the people we picked. And that's the reason to eliminate the party primary, eliminate Republican influence on the primary and therefore on the election. And, you know, primaries, as they're currently configured, closed primaries, and this is really kind of a semi-closed primary that we have in Idaho, really. Otherwise, Mike wouldn't be able to vote in a Republican primary whenever he wants. If it was really closed, he'd have to be a registered Republican all the time. But we don't have that. This is not a hardcore system we have in Idaho. As the U.S. District Court said when they upheld the Republicans closing their primaries, they said that this system allows for great flexibility. It allows everybody to vote, and the Constitution of the United States of America allows people to choose who they affiliate with. So you cannot require people to have people that mean them ill voting for their leaders, at least in the primary. But I understand why people want to change this. It's because they lost some elections. It's because they had hard-fought primaries and the person they wanted lost. How many people saw everybody they wanted to win in the last primary? How many people saw some people they didn't want to win in the last primary? Okay, a few. I'm no different. I mean, your candidates don't always win. In the last election, my candidates didn't win. You know, I had yard signs. Many of the people that I supported lost. I voted for Chanel Dixon and Linda Hartgen. Do you guys know who they are? They lost. I voted for them because they're good people, and I'm a prosecutor, and they were solid on the issues I know and care about, which is admittedly a very small number of issues. But when I went to the legislature and I asked Linda for help, she gave it. When I asked Chanel for help, she sponsored bills for me. So I voted for them. They lost. Happens. So when people in my party that I don't vote for win, and then my candidate loses, my solution is not to destroy my party. If I go home tonight, and I'll get home late because I'm a long ways away and I'm not done talking yet, but when I get home, if I flick on my garage light and I walk in there and some dude's in there in a tent, how many of you think I should light a match to my house and burn the damn thing down? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do whatever I have to do legally to get that person out of my house so that I can have my house back. And if my candidates never win in the primary in my party, that means I have to do what in the next election, the next primary? What should I do? What should I do? Work harder. Or I can take the easy way out and get a legislative enactment through an initiative that eliminates any need for me to work harder, because it automatically means that I can't lose the next one. The jungle primary will do a lot of damage. It will do a lot of damage because it will destroy both the Republican and the Democrat parties. It will change our whole electoral system. It will change our system because we'll have a splintered electorate, splintered representatives. There'll be many different parties, perhaps. There'll certainly be a lot of people we don't know anything about. They'll be very difficult to control. We'll lose stability. We have a lot of examples on the planet of splintered electorates, of systems where there are many, many different parties. And what happens in those systems is that in order to legislate, you have to have a coalition. So I've got 46% of the vote for the Republican Party, but I can't govern with 46%. I need to pick a speaker. So I've got to bring the Green Party people in, and I've got to bring the Libertarians in, and I got to bring the Conservative Party in. And there are only 2 Conservative Party guys, but that's what takes me from 49 to 50, 51. And if I don't make those people happy, they bolt, and now I've got no government. And they say, well, we're going to go with the Democrats then. So what you have is a system like we have in Italy, France, United Kingdom, Israel, where there are a few people that sit off in that corner and they just say, yeah, we're out. We're out. Oh, so we have to either have new elections or we have to form a new coalition. We have to do something. So it's a big mess. So what it means is that you have a system where a few extreme people hold your legislature hostage, kind of like what happened with the Speaker of the House in the United States Representatives. Yeah.
Can you share any examples of when that has happened, where you have had one party that is splintered like that into those multiple factions?
Well, I just gave you one that happened twice in the last 2 years, right?
Would you call that a splintering?
Sure. They're all Republicans, but that is what would happen if you splinter the electorate. You'd have different groups, and of course this happens in foreign governments all the time. I mean, every time you hear, Bibi Netanyahu is calling for new elections. Well, why is he doing that? Because one of his coalition people ran away and he needs to have a new election, hopefully to win those people over to his party. It happens in Italy all the time. For years and years and years, Italy was one government after another, just like changing shirts, because there are 37 different parties. And so
the Republican Party and the Speaker of the House, that was initiated within the party.
That's true. That's true.
And that the party gave a no confidence vote for their own representative.
Well, yes, with the Democrats.
There was Democratic support for that, of course.
Well,
but
everyone votes on that.
yes.
So the Democrats all vote. 5 guys decide they're going to vote with the Democrats to kill the Speaker. So it all falls apart, yes. But that is a splintering, but under the same umbrella, but they're clearly different, right?
Okay.
It's a different group within that party, yes. So, so ranked choice voting will also do a lot of damage. It encourages voters to settle for somebody they don't like, just because it's not as bad as the next guy. It encourages candidates to run anonymously so that they don't become the most hated person. And you know, that is one of the advantages cited by people who are in favor of ranked choice voting, is that it will make our elections more civil. Well, they'll be more civil because nobody will take a position. Because to take a position is to be held accountable for the position, and that's how you lose votes. I can't afford to lose any votes. So if you have a thing like we talked about before with my absurd example, but there are real examples too. I mean, what if you're in Boise and you have a battle between somebody who's really pro-choice and somebody who's really pro-life? Those aren't extreme examples, those are real. You probably got people in your neighborhood that are both of those things. And we have a person who's really enunciated their pro-life position, somebody who's really enunciated their pro-choice position, and neither one of them is going to win, because the person who didn't enunciate any position is going to be the second choice of both, and neither side will know who they're getting in the end. Ranked choice by design creates a pathway for the anonymous and the unpopular. That's what it does. And it will cost a lot. This is how much, and somebody, I can't remember, somebody spoiled my thunder on this one, but it will cost, according to this guy who is, you know, I don't think he's anybody's, you know, right-wing nut job. This guy says it will cost between $25 and $40 million, and he's the guy in charge of that sort of thing in Idaho. It will depend whether you're at the high end or the low end on how well prepared and well stocked up your county is on advanced computer systems for voting. Some are better than others.
Is that in Idaho?
That's our Idaho Secretary of State. Yep, Phil McGrain. He's talking about what it will cost to do this in Idaho. $25 to $40 million. And, you know, obviously he didn't tell that to me. He told it to the newspaper and he wrote it in an official letter. That's his official position. So who wins and who loses if Idaho adopts jungle primaries and ranked choice voting? Well, this is all the elected officials in Idaho. Legislature, county, state officers, US officials. Republicans, 83, 86, 100%, 100%. Democrats, 16%, 12%. Somebody has nothing to lose by destroying the party system. Somebody has a lot to lose. These people are the people that Idaho has elected. These people are not satisfied with that. And of course, some people from all different parties aren't either. So where are we to see this in action? There are places where we have this exact system or one very similar. We already talked about Alaska. Alaska has exactly the same thing that we're trying to do with the jungle primary and the top 4 get in and the ranked choice voting. Same exact thing. Some of these are all different. Australia, Ireland, Maine, Alaska, and Hawaii are the only states in the United States that have it right now. Although I think Louisiana does too, but I'm not sure how widespread. These are the cities, some of the cities that use it. And so feel free to pick your favorite city from here and say, yeah, I'm pretty much associate with that kind of thinking. Those are my kind of people. These are, you know, some of these are good places or used to be to visit, but these are the cities where it's currently used. So it's catching on in some places for sure.
Even Newsom doesn't want it in California.
No. So who's funding this progressive electoral reform? And that's what it is. It's a progressive idea. It's a progressive electoral reform. I updated this just today because of a very lengthy article in the Times News, which had even worse numbers than I had on it before. But the Idahoans for open primaries have $2.8 million. They haven't spent it all yet, but I'm sure you're getting some of their ads on TV. Rising Idaho is the biggest anti-group. They have $241,000. Of the 2.8 million, 1.9 million that's being spent in favor of Prop 1 is from out of state.
I looked at that this morning, Grant, and there's 4 million.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me. This is when I looked at the Secretary of State's Sunshine Report 3 days ago, it was lower than this, and then today this, and so, you know, it changes anytime somebody, but in any case, this is a huge amount. It dwarfs this 10 to 1, 20 to 1. And this amount is huge and kind of disturbing, I think. So, open primaries, who in Idaho is supporting it? Well, the Open Primary Initiative people. And, you know, this is a list on their website of the Republicans because they're, of course, going after Republicans. They must have Republican votes to do this. Republicans, if they vote against this, there's no chance it passes. They must have the support of Republicans. So they have a lot of Republicans. I know a lot of these people personally. You know, I'm sure all of you do. And you know, the chief person on that list, let's go back to the picture, is right here, Governor Otter, former Governor Otter. Good guy. I don't have anything against Governor Otter. I like Governor Otter. I supported him every time he ran. My wife was in his cabinet, and as a result, I met her, and so he's responsible for me being a very happily married person. I think he's wrong on this, but he's a good guy. So who is against it? Governor Little, Lieutenant Governor Bedke, who you guys might know, Senator Risch, Senator Crapo, Congressman Simpson, Congressman Fulcher, Speaker Moyle, Senate Majority Leader Winder, and almost all, well, not almost all, most of Idaho's senators and representatives. I don't know if you guys know this. Second, I'm trying to keep up here so I know I like to know what's coming before you guys see it. Oh, here's a quote, good quote this is a quote from Governor Little's page. I am opposed to ranked choice voting and signed House Bill 179, which we'll get to in a second, in 2023, banning it in Idaho. We must promote voting practices that are clear, increase voter participation, and don't undermine confidence in our elections, and ranked choice voting meets none of these standards. Idahoans will make their voices heard on Proposition 1 of the ballot box in November. As for me, I will not be supporting Proposition 1. House Speaker Moyle put $241,000 of his dollars from his PAC into the fight against this. He was one of the people, in fact, back here, I can go, this is him. This is his PAC. So he's strongly opposed to it. So what is the position of Idaho's senators who have declared, some haven't said anything, Republicans, there's 1 for, 21 against, 78%, 5 have not made their positions known. Democrats, 3 or 4, 8 have not made their position known. In the House, 3 Republicans are for it, 38, 66% are against it, 17 are unknown.
House Minority Leader Rubel has been on record being against it.
You know, I heard that, and then I've tried to find something specifically that she said, so I'm not going to quote that. Okay, and I heard, Bill told me that, I didn't hear it, but if that's true, that's because probably she doesn't want her party eliminated. Because it will be eliminated. It'll be a non-entity. But like I showed before, that means they lose 15% of the seats in the state and the Republicans lose 85. So it's, you know, it could be a good gamble. So back here, Governor Otter talked about House Bill 179. How many of you know what this is? Have you heard of this before? The legislature in 2023 voted to make ranked choice voting illegal. As it stands now, it's against the law in Idaho for any county, any legislative district, any person to be elected through a ranked choice voting system. It went through committees in the House, it passed. It went through committees in the Senate, it passed. It passed on the floor of the House, it passed on the floor of the Senate. The governor signed it into law, and you're thinking, well, must have been a slim majority thing because there are a lot of Republicans who are against it now. Well, wasn't that slim. Here's the list of all the people that were for making ranked choice voting illegal in the House. All these people. Here are the people that wanted to keep ranked choice voting as an option. Here's the Senate. All the people for making ranked choice voting illegal. All the people who wanted to keep it as an option. So here's the breakdown. The Idaho House, 55 Republicans for banning ranked choice voting, 4 against. 1 Democrat for banning it, 8 against. The Senate, 28-0. Every single Republican senator wanted to ban ranked choice voting. Every single Democrat senator wanted to keep ranked choice voting as an option.
If it's against the law, why are we even doing this?
Because
How did it get through?
Because people signed petitions to put it on the ballot. And in Idaho, we have a system where citizens can put initiatives on the ballot. And if the initiative passes, as we will find out in 16 days, 17 days, if it passes, then it becomes law. It's just as if the legislature passed it, except of course it had no committee hearings, it had no votes of your elected officials, it was just a vote of the people. And curiously, what that means is it's a law like any other, which means the next legislature can vote it out, or they can modify it, or anything else, which, you know, the only way to prevent that is to make it a constitutional amendment, which the supporters of this said if they lose this time, they will make it a constitutional amendment. So, in sum, only a year ago, there was a bill in Idaho to make ranked choice voting illegal. It passed 80-20 in the House. In the Senate, it passed 82 to 17% in the House. The breakdown for citizens, though, like you folks and your neighbors and, you know, Mike, and what was your name, sir? I didn't get it. Ivan. People, you know, the vote amongst people are some are against, some are for. It's very difficult to tell because in Idaho especially, I'm always suspect of polls because I never really think Idaho pollsters know what they're doing. But, you know, we'll see. They'll grow up. But this is the poll that was done recently by, let me get the name for you. Oh, geez. Oh, yeah, I got it. Zoldak Research Company. And I saw an interview with this lady. She seemed to know what she was doing. She runs this company. She does polls on various things. Here's their logo here. So this was the question they asked. Given what you just learned and what you already know about Proposition 1, would you vote for it or against it? 45% to 39% say no. This is of all voters. So if this is right, and this was on the 2nd through the 10th, I think this poll was done. If this is right, then there's a lot of undecided still, but it's very close, within 5 or 6 points. So, Republican versus Democrat, this poll asked. Republicans, 57.7% no, 28% yes. Democrats, can somebody read that for me? 74% to 18%. So you can see there's a big difference between who supports this among the people, just like there was in the legislature, although not as much a difference. So this is a scarier thing for us, because the Democrats are very familiar with it by a huge margin compared to what Republicans know. So the Republican familiarity is far lower than the Democrat familiarity. And that's a frightening thing because of the thing I showed you before. We cannot afford as Republicans to be ignorant about this. Make your decision however you want to. I mean, maybe everybody but Mike in here, I don't know, Ivan, are you a Republican or unaffiliated or?
I'm a Republican.
Okay, so you're a Republican. So, you know, the point is you should know about this. Whether you take my word for it or you think anything I've said is persuasive, that's not relevant. You need to research this for yourself, because Republicans cannot allow to be the most ignorant people in the state on this issue. Because all you need to do if you're against this as Republicans is vote against it, and it loses. The only way this passes with Republicans being against it is if they don't wake up. So if Idaho Republicans wake up, realize that this is the death of their party, they will vote against it, and we can defeat this progressive idea. That is all I have. I don't have any idea how long I was, but I told McCord to yank me off if I was going too long, and he didn't, so I assumed that at least he was satisfied. I will answer any questions if people have them. Yeah?
So going back to the cost of it, so $40 million in Idaho, but there's every city and every county in Idaho spend money on the computer programs.
I don't know the answer to that for sure. I asked my county clerk, who would be the one that would be in charge of making sure that our voting system works. And she said that we have a machine that'll do it, but we need to buy a program that'll do it. And she wasn't yet sure how much the program was, but it was a lot less than if she had to buy the machine and the program. But given that, I doubt there's anybody in the state other than possibly Ada County that would have a program that would do it. Because Twin Falls is big enough to, you know, have a lot of people voting, and we usually buy all the newest machines so that we can tally our stuff pretty early in the evening. So my guess is that at least the program needs to be purchased by everyone. And that would be a question that, you know, would be best be asked of Phil McGrain, who knows statewide how it all works. And when he was asked to assess statewide what the cost will be, he's the one that came up with the $25 to $40 million number. Anybody else? Yeah.
So you were saying if there's a constitutional amendment, then that would eliminate ranked choice voting. So,
well, either way, it would. What I said was, if this passes, if ranked choice voting passes, if Proposition 1 passes and we get the jungle primary and the ranked choice voting, then that will be the law of Idaho. Unless the legislature says, we don't like that and changes it. Because this would be a law no more sacrosanct than any other law. It would be like a law the last legislature passed. It can be changed. So if the pro-Proposition 1 people, the Reclaim Idaho people, have said that if they pass this, and if the legislature monkeys with it, changes it, or gets rid of it, then they will come back next time with a constitutional amendment to make ranked choice voting part of our Constitution. And that way, the legislature cannot remove it. So it would be part of the Constitution if you wanted to eliminate ranked choice voting and made that part of the Constitution. Same thing. I mean, if it's in the Constitution, it requires a vote of the people to change it.
So hindsight 2020, should those legislators have made a constitutional amendment to not have ranked choice voting?
Well, the legislature doesn't have the power to just change the Constitution. They would have to put it on the ballot. Well, I'm just going to go right down the first row because you're so interested and so eager.
Hopefully this is on topic, but with that scenario, how do you keep the legislature relevant?
Well, the legislature would be as relevant as they are. They would still be elected. You just wouldn't have much of an idea who you'd elected.
I mean, it's.
But they'll still be legislators and they'll still be able to pass laws. I mean, you're still going to go, right?
Yep, I was still
He's
going.
still going to go. And he's still going to be your legislator unless you vote him out. But they will still have all the powers and prerogatives they have. It's just that there will be an initiated, people-passed law that's on the books unless it's changed. Anyone else? All right.
So I was gonna take a couple minutes at the end, but I need to go right now, so.
Well, why don't you go now? So,
Whoa, is that me? So I think that there's no question that this next legislative session, there'll be a huge amount of discussion on the election process. If you watch the primaries through the state, you saw a tremendous amount of out-of-state money come in, and the level of professionalism and integrity dipped big time in a lot of these races. And I've been reading a book on President Garfield, and was happy to find that he had the same problems back in those days, that the election process was a mess and that people were bitterly fighting over issues, which we've seen a lot more in Idaho than we ever have in the past, as long as I've been watching elections. So Idaho historically, whether these pass or fail, these kind of votes, Idaho's legislature historically has done what they wanted to do. You probably have noticed that. And I think there's a pretty good chance that there's probably that same attitude this year, but I think it'll be combined with some of the out-of-state funding for our primary and general elections. The amount of money that all of a sudden is coming to Idaho, all of a sudden people are interested in Idaho's politics, and I think it's just because it's the cheapest place to come and have any influence, because generally speaking, our election process for people that run has been relatively inexpensive. But talking to Mike, Speaker Moyle in his election this time around spent over what was it, $240,000, I believe. We've never approached those kinds of numbers before. I think Chanel, which you mentioned, I think she told me she spent around $80,000. And when you see those kind of numbers, then it makes you a little worried that our process has become less of a by the people, for the people, and a little more by the money, with the money, and that's an unfortunate situation. But anyway, I will, whatever passes when we're in session, I'll be open to whatever ideas or thoughts anybody has. I tend not to try and support or not support this initiative, because I think my position is, as elected officials, to do what we did, like with the House bill last, or the bill we passed last year. But it's the people's responsibility with these initiatives to decide what they want and send the vote to us. And maybe that's erroneous, but that's how I feel about it. With that, I'm going to leave because I got to take my father-in-law to be to the airport at 8 in the morning. Yeah, you can moan. I did. Thank you.
Where's your airport?
Salt Lake.
oh, okay. Did you want to speak now too, or do you want to wait till we're done? And we can be done whenever I'm yanked off the stage. I'm at the mercy of this guy who told me he'd grab me, but there are some questions.
We should wrap it up a little
Okay.
bit on that end of it. And
So let's take maybe 2 more questions, because there were a bunch of people I was ignoring because I was going through the front row.
Just a quick question. Difference between a constitutional amendment and a proposition as far as votes. I mean, does it take, so it takes 50%?
Yeah, it's a
for
super
this.
majority for a constitutional amendment. Yeah, so it's harder to do.
Where can we find this on YouTube?
we'll have the link put up if you.
I don't know, I'm
check
just the
our
talent.
Facebook page. We'll have it put up there.
Anyone else back here, or should we be done? Keep in mind, if you ask a question now, you're keeping people from going home.
Do you think that our party has gotten too chummy with the state in legislative code to where we're using public funds to run our elections? Is that part of our problem with this? I mean, we're using tax dollars to fund
Primary elections.
our elections, and so is this sort of our own fault that we're dealing with this because we have tied ourselves to using taxpayer funds? Should we be funding those on our own and running our own system?
You know, I don't know. The public funding of primaries is pretty much the way it is everywhere. On the other hand, if you do caucuses or conventions, which are two other ways to select nominees, those are usually funded by the parties themselves. In fact, I think always. I think that the interest in publicly funding these is some of the factors that the people who are pro Prop 1 are bringing up are, well, we need to have integrity in the Republican primary because a lot of these people win. We need to have it done professionally because some people are unopposed. I mean, Clay, I don't think he has an opponent, does he? So he's unopposed. So he won by winning the primary. And so the interest is in having a government regulated and accountable voting system for primary elections as well. That would be something that a legislator could try to pass if they wanted. But I think that there would be a lot of question about the validity of an election that was run just by one party and wasn't overseen by professional election people, however much you trust them. But I think that's a point. That's one of the points they make. They say if there's a primary, everybody should be able to vote. Well, as I pointed out, everybody does get to vote, but there are just rules about how to vote. Anything else before I am done?
So to clarify, for someone to register to run, they could just say, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat. They don't have to affiliate in order to be on the ballot.
Yeah, they just need to say what they are.
So then our precinct
Something that needs to be in that parentheses next to their name.
So like our district committee, if, say, Clay resigned early, what would the process be to appoint someone in that position?
This is a question I was talking about with this gentleman here, as a commissioner in Cassia County and was appointed, correct? In Mini-Cassia. I don't know the answer to that. And
so I'm reading through, like you asked.
Is it in the 18 pages?
Yes.
Okay.
And it just says it will be filled by the county central committee.
But if you have a Democrat and a Republican,
There's a county central committee. That's all it says. So
what if you
have no parties anymore? It's just
Yeah, I don't know how that would work.
If you wrote Republican in there, but you're a registered Democrat, because you can write whatever you want.
Yeah, I didn't go through all the people that ran with Santa Claus against Palin, but some of those people were just of whatever party, and a lot of them were unaffiliated and non-affiliated and something. There were two different words that meant the same thing. If it's one of those people, then I don't know who would pick. You want to bring this to a close?
Let's have Doug give his comments.
And then
Afterwards, if people have questions.
yeah, I'll stay for a minute.
Thank you, Grant, and thank you everybody that came out tonight and maybe participating online. I attended this in Mini-Cassia County, I don't know, when was it, a month ago or a few weeks ago?
Seems like it was a long time.
And it was well worth my time then, and it was definitely well worth my time tonight to hear this. And hats off to Grant for his research and his ability to articulate the position. No matter what you feel about Prop 1, I think you can agree that Grant gave a very fair assessment and included all viewpoints in his analysis here. I just want to make 2 points because I'm like you, I came to listen to Grant, not me. And I don't want to be the guy that keeps everybody from going home. But first of all, a little bit of the historical context, because Idaho does have a long history with open primaries, with closed primaries, with reverting back and forth and so forth. And then also the second point would be maybe a little bit about what's at stake if this passes. So first of all, it's been pointed out in the conversation regarding Prop 1 that Idaho initiated or adopted an open direct primary system in 1909. That is true.
And this was a time when the Republican Party was fractured. As we know, the Blue Moose Party came about in the teens. The Republicans were splintered between the Bull Moose Party and the Republican Party, and the Democrats were in control. The Democrats were the party in power in Idaho in the teens 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago. And then along about 1917, there was a movement that came out of North Dakota called the Nonpartisan League. The Nonpartisan League was a group of farmers who were upset at commodity prices and the way things were handled in the marketing of their products. And they advocated for state-owned banks, for state-owned livestock commissions, for state-owned grain facilities, and all of these radical, progressive things. And they began to make a wave across the upper states and moved west into Idaho in 1917. And actually in 1917, in September of that year, when the primary was held, the Nonpartisan League brought forward a slate of their own candidates in the Democrat primary. And every single one of those candidates won that election, that primary election. In fact, they took over. They took over the Republicans, or they took over the Democrat Party. The Nonpartisan League candidates took over the Democrat Party. And the ramifications of that were so huge, the reverberations of that throughout the state were so large that in 1919, the state repealed the 1909 law that they had passed. But not before Senator Frank Gooding, in his shrewd and calculating way, grabbed hold of the opportunity and seized the moment and took over with Republican control of the state politics until 1930. This impact was so large that the era of 1918 to 1930 has become known as the dark age of Democrats in Idaho. Because all of the statewide offices, all the congressional people were Republicans during that period of time. And it wasn't until 1930 when Ben Ross, the Democrat, the mayor of Pocatello, beat our very own John McMurray from Oakley, who was the Senate pro tem for the race for governor, that the Democrats regained control. That is some of the history of what happens with these games that are played and with these opportunities that people can seize control of if the conditions are just right. Because once again, that system was adopted in 1909. It wasn't until 1917 that the conditions became just right with an agrarian society, with a bunch of farmers who were upset of certain issues, came forward, that this Nonpartisan League came in and took over the party in control, the Democrat Party, and reduced it to ashes within a year. And those are the types of scenarios that play out in my mind. Those of us that know our history, those of us that don't know our history, it can be repeated. The issues won't be the same. We're not agrarian 1917. The issues will be different, but they will come and they will take that money that you're seeing that is coming from out of state for the initiative, will be brought to bear again in another election cycle to bring down the Republican candidates. That's what will happen with this. And so then a little bit of what's at stake. Just a couple of things, because I know we're out of time and I'd like to talk about more issues. Because one of my arguments about this is that if there's such a concern about what's going on in Idaho, let's talk about the policies that people have concerns about rather than the process. What is it that's coming out of the process that's so disturbing to people? Okay, so I've searched my mind and I've gone back and thought, well, what are some of the controversial issues that we've talked about that could be burdensome or troubling to people? There's several, okay? We have several controversial issues. This last session, we had a budget process that was initiated. Clay was very involved in it, and he did a tremendous job. And if anybody thinks that Clay is extreme, please come and tell me, because Clay is the most even-handed, level-minded person that I know in the legislature. But he's directly involved because he's on JFAC, and we have concerns about our budgets in Idaho. And I've promised people that I will be honest with you and maybe even a little bit more candid than a politician should be. But Idaho's Medicaid budget is out of control. It's a monster. This year for FY25, we passed a budget. We passed this budget. I voted for it. $4.7 billion for Medicaid. That's not the entire Department of Health and Welfare budget. That's only the Medicaid portion. Would anybody like to tell me what the K-12 budget is in Idaho? Would anybody like to venture a guess? Leiden.
$2.3 billion.
$2.7 billion is our K-12 budget. And Medicaid is 4.7. Now, I sit as a co-chair on the JLOC committee, which is the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee. And that's been a very good thing for me because that committee evaluates the effectiveness of government agencies. And we had a presentation come in about the direct care workforce for our elderly people. These are people that are homebound, and we want them to stay in their homes because that's the cheapest way to care for them rather than a facility. But there was testimony of people who had been left in their homes in their diapers for days without any assistance on a $4.7 billion budget. And I'm looking around the committee and I'm thinking, does anybody want to call the police or should I? Or I said to the chairman, should we adjourn this meeting and get a list of people and go do something? Because the money's not getting where it needs to be. But I'll tell you one thing, if this ranked choice voting passes and you start picking away in those purple districts, the conservative legislators, that budget will not be fixed. I can guarantee you that. I promise you that. One more thing and then I'll go, even though there's many others. What would you say as a parent if you suddenly realized one day or learned that your child was being transitioned by your local school district from one gender to the other without your knowledge or consent? Does that sound extreme to you? That was school district policy in districts in the Magic Valley. And I didn't believe it until I looked it up myself and saw it with my own eyes. These are the types of things that a conservative legislature is remedying. Parental consent, parental rights. That's one of the things that I'm campaigning on this cycle because it's so important to me that we uphold the traditional family, that we uphold and sustain parent-child relationships, that our school system will allow parents to be involved in anything that happens to their kids because this policy would have allowed for employees of school districts to be terminated from their jobs, whether it be teachers or counselors, whatever. They would be subject to termination if they had informed a parent of their child's desire to transition without that child's consent. That was actual policy that came straight from the state. And these school districts adopted that policy until we changed the law. And one of the biggest champions on those laws was defeated in the primary election this year, Representative Julianne Young from Blackfoot. She was defeated, and she was one of the biggest champions for those types of laws. I love to sit back and watch people take on a mother of 10 children and talk about what a male and female is. That was a very entertaining debate, and I'm going to miss that. But those are the types of things that are at stake with this initiative. The ramifications of this will be so far-reaching we can't even imagine it. And so our time has been very well spent here, and I thank Grant. Nobody could have done it better. Thank you for taking the time and being here, and thank you all for being interested and involved, and please vote no. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time this evening. That will conclude our meeting and the broadcast. If you have questions for Grant, he can stick around and ask. He'll answer questions even though he's got a little ways to travel. Yeah, slide.
We do have some signs down here. If anybody wants those, they're welcome to take those.
Yeah, there are vote no on Prop 1 signs. Melissa Brown made the Love Idaho vote no on Prop 1 signs. I really wish they would have gone statewide with those. I think that is such a much better message. So I appreciate that. Oh, I'm being told by John to grab one and so he can put that up. This is actually a magnet, which is awesome. I just think that that's amazing. We have a lot of talent in this room. And we do. So it's great. Go ahead and take them. So thank you everybody for being here. Thank you everybody on the internet that participated. We appreciate you. Have a good night.
You can unplug me there?
You betcha.
Okay, make sure you take